Well, welcome. Do you feel like your emotional needs are constantly overlooked in your marriage? You're not alone. You're not. Emotional neglect is a silent struggle for so many neurotypical wives in neurodiverse marriages. And in this video, I'm going to show you 10 clear signs that you're experiencing this. This is really happening to you, right? And why noticing these patterns is the first step towards change. Well, if it's your first time here, welcome in. My name is Olivia, and I've been married for 25 plus years to my wonderful man who's been on the autism spectrum for all the time that I've known him, right? Well, I just want to welcome you in, and I want to tell you my heart for you, dear friend, is that you feel seen, supported, understood, and validated on this journey called neurodiverse marriage. Okay. So if you're ready, let's get into it. Well, if you clicked on this video and, there's a real good chance you're carrying something quietly that many people don't know about, and you've been carrying it quietly for a long time. Um, it's not a dramatic crisis. Um, it's not a single explosive moment in your marriage, but a slow, steady sense of being emotionally unseen. I think I see you shaking your head. Yeah. Um, I want to say this at the beginning of this video, okay? I want to say this. This video is not about blaming your husband. It's not about attacking autism. It's not what I'm doing. And it's not about labeling anybody as bad, okay? Um, it's it is though, it's about naming an experience that many neurotypical wives live with every single day. And often without language. Uh, Often it's not named. Um, Often without validation or support. Because emotional neglect, it doesn't, it doesn't always look obvious. It doesn't. And in neurodiverse marriages, it can be really hard to recognize. It really can. Okay. Well, let's talk about emotional neglect and what it means in neurodiverse marriages. And um, it doesn't always mean cruelty, um, but what it does often mean, it means absence, right? A lack of emotional attunement, that emotional reciprocity, it's not there. Um, a lack of curiosity about what's going on in your world, you know, what's going on, your growth, what you're doing, what your goals are, what your dreams are, right? A lack of curiosity from him, a lack of response when you're hurting, yeah, um, or when you're overwhelmed, or you're just reaching for connection. You just want to hug, you just want to be held, right? During some tough times. And in neurodiverse marriages, especially those with high masking autistic husbands, this neglect is often unintentional. So most of the time, he's not doing it on purpose, but unintentional, it does not mean that it's not painless. When these things happen, it's very painful, right? Even though he's not doing it on purpose, it's unintentional. So let's walk through the 10 most common signs neurotypical wives experience. So let's walk through those. And you might experience or you may experience several of these. And if not, that's okay. No worries. So let's start with sign number one. Your feelings are acknowledged intellectually, but not emotionally. So your husband may say things like, I hear you. Or he may say something like, oh, I understand you. But emotionally, he has no clue. Nothing lands, right? There's no warmth. There's no follow up. And there's no sense of being emotionally held or emotionally heard. He didn't really get the nuance. He didn't get your feelings of what you were trying to convey, right? And so even though your feelings are technically acknowledged, he did say, I hear you, I understand, you still feel alone. Is that you? Yeah. And that gap between being heard and then being emotionally met, that's a core feature of emotional neglect for sure, right? Well, let's go on to number two. You stop sharing because it feels pointless. Over time, you may notice yourself thinking, what's the point of me bringing this up? What's the point of me even sharing, just talking to my husband, just bringing this up, or just sharing something about your day, just general conversation, right? What's the point? And it's not because you don't care, but because the outcome feels the same every time you talk, right? Um, there's minimal response, basic, you know, defensiveness. I'm just trying to talk and bring defensiveness, confusion. He's confused. Why did she do that? Or they're shut down just because you bring something up. And it doesn't have to be between you, it could be anything, right? So this is what you do. You carry things on your own. You just deal with it. You shut down basically. You stop talking to him. You stop bringing up things. You stop sharing some day-to-day things or something that's on your mind or on your heart, right? And so this quiet withdrawal, it's not indifference. You're not being indifferent. You're just protecting yourself. You're protecting your peace. You're protecting your nervous system. You're protecting you, right? Okay, let's keep going. Number three, sign number three, you feel emotionally lonely in the marriage. Yeah. You may live together, you may parent together, you function as a team well, okay? Um, but emotionally, you feel alone. Mhm. You don't feel chosen emotionally. You don't feel reached for emotionally. You don't feel known. He doesn't even know really who I am. He doesn't know my feelings. And when I try to share them, what's the point, right? Emotional loneliness inside a marriage is one of the most painful things, and it is the least talked about, right? That emotional loneliness. And, this is one of the things that many neurotypical wives experience, right? Yeah. Okay, let's go on to sign number four. 444. You question whether your needs are too much. You question yourself, like, you start to wonder, am I asking for too much? You know, am I being too much? Am I being extra? You know, you may ask, like, why do I need more than he does? Or you start to ask yourself, shouldn't this be enough? He's a good guy. He takes care of home. He's a good provider. You know, you start to ask yourself these things. But when emotional needs go unmet for long periods of time, self-doubt replaces self-trust. Yeah. When that goes on a long time, I don't know, maybe I am being too much. Maybe I should be grateful. Maybe blah, 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 right? Yeah. And this is not because your needs are unreasonable, because they're not. It's because they aren't being mirrored. And what I mean by that, emotional reciprocity. There's not that give and take emotionally. I can't go and share something with my husband. And if I need to just lay there in his arms, or if I need to hear the words, "Oh, honey, I'm sorry you had a bad day. That sounds terrible," right? If something happened to him or one of his friends and he shared with you, you would give him that emotional reciprocity. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry to hear that. How was his family, or how was her family, and what went on? Oh, I'm so sorry. I know you were," whatever it might be. I'm just making up something, right? But you don't get that, right? Okay. Number 5. You feel responsible for the emotional climate in your marriage. You manage the mood, right? The climate. You manage. You prevent conflict. You soften your words. And, if something feels off, um, you assume that it's your job, dear friend. You assume it's your job to fix it. Um, that's what you do. You feel responsible. And this emotional load that you carry, it's so heavy. It's so heavy, and it is invisible. It definitely is invisible. And um the emotional dynamics in your marriage, oftentimes one partner, carries far more relational responsibility than the other. And I think that might be true in, neurotypical marriages too. You know, I'm just throwing that in. So let's go to number 6. Okay. Number 6, sign number 6. Your body shows stress before your mind does. You know, you experience chronic fatigue. There's anxiety. You're dealing with anxiety, brain fog, headaches, digestive issues. Maybe your hair is falling out. I don't know. Your body often registers emotional neglect as chronic stress. Did you know that? And, this isn't weakness, it's your nervous system responding to long-term emotional safety. That's what it's doing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Are you ready for number 7? Yes? No? Yes? Okay. Nope. Number 7. You feel more like a manager than a partner. Ugh. Or you can say it like this: you feel more like his mama than his wife, right? You know, you coordinate everything, you organize, you remind, you plan, but you don't feel that emotional connection, that emotional partnership, right? And when emotional connection is absent, marriages can slip into just functional roles instead of relational intimacy. It can become very transactional, very functional, right? Yeah. Let's go on to sign number 8. Others don't see what you experience. They do not see what's going on inside, right? Your husband may be kind and capable, People like him. He's a good guy. Boy, he takes care of you. Boy, you might be, they may say, "Oh, you're spoiled. He's such a good guy." And so when you try to explain how lonely or unseen you feel, people don't understand that. Mm-mm. They don't understand. They don't. And this invisibility it can deepen your isolation. So that means I just really don't even want to be around people too much. I don't want to invite people to my house because my husband, um, and you just don't want to deal with still feeling unseen and people not understanding you when you try to share something with them, right? And it makes you doubt, it makes you doubt your own experiences and what's really going on in your own life, in your own marriage. Okay, let's keep going. Sign number 9, you grieve a marriage you can't quite explain. I mean, it's a loss. Um, Grief is not only talking about death of a loved one or friend, it's about a loss, and whether it's a loss in what I thought my marriage would be, it would be a loss and I didn't get to do the career or go after the career or there's a loss because my dreams I didn't get to fulfill them or I can't fulfill them right now for one reason or another. And so you grieve a marriage you can't quite explain. You're still married, right? You're still married. Nothing really big's happening in your marriage, but you still feel that grief that I'll never have what others have in their marriage. I won't have that emotional reciprocity. And you're not even necessarily being in fantasy land. And what I mean by that, you're not watching the Lifetime TV shows and, oh, I want my marriage to be like that. That's on TV. A lot of that, it's not real. But you are based in reality and you're saying, I know that I will not have what others typically experience in marriage, right? And so, there's grief for connection that you hope for, right? That connection. Grief for being emotionally met. You won't have that. You won't have that. And grief for feeling alone while you're married. All that you deal with, right? And this quiet grief is a hallmark of emotional neglect. Okay. Let's go to sign number 10. Here we are, finally, number 10. You're here watching this video is sign number 10. Yes, ma'am. Did you know that? You weren't counting on that. I know you weren't. But sign number 10, you're here, dear, dear heart, dear friend, and you're watching this video. And you didn't find this video by accident. Um, you are here because something inside you said, this matters. Um, and I'm glad you saw the video and I'm glad that you're watching it. Because recognizing emotional neglect, it's not about blame. Um, it's about clarity. It's about finally getting clear what my marriage, what type I have, what I'm dealing with, who I'm dealing with, right? And clarity is the first step towards calm. Once I know what I'm dealing with, then okay, I have an idea. Okay, so what do I do next? And how do I make it work? And all of those kinds of things, right? It's the first step towards calm. It's the first step towards steadiness. and self-trust again. Okay. Well, we're coming to the end, dear friend. And if you recognize yourself in several of these signs, let me say this to you. Um, you're not too sensitive. Um, you're not asking for too much. And you're not broken somehow because this feels hard, right? You're not. And, you know, emotional neglect in neurodiverse marriages is real. It is real. I want to validate you. It is real. Cassandra syndrome, yes, it's real. And it deserves to be named with compassion. You may share what you're feeling with other people and like, oh, you're crazy. Oh, that's not true. Oh, you're spoiled. No. Emotional neglect in neurodiverse marriages is real and it deserves to be named with compassion. And whether you take the next step with me, dear friend, in the masterclass, um, or you just kind of watch this video, kind of go through it again, and kind of sit with what you've learned today, kind of mull it over. Um, I hope you leave this video knowing this, that you're not alone. You are not alone. I'm right here with you, experiencing these things with you, and you don't have to carry this in silence anymore. I hope you know that. Well, if this video resonated with you today, dear friend, please like, please subscribe, please share it with another dear heart who's going through these challenges too, and share it with her today. But before you leave, check out this next video. Has some good information in there for you. Well, until next time, I'll see you. I'll see you in the next video.